The game for Kingzone might just be ensure Khan has a good matchup. Make sure you can always beat up Hanabi on the top side and have that pressure like he's had all throughout the year up until recently at MSI. Look at the draft and so far, it is the exact same before. Karma, Rise, Morgana on the one, Graves, Mal's, Kha'Zix on the other.
And I definitely agree with the Fisher on the analyst desk that I felt like Rise was the ban to drop and Aurelia to occupy that spot. So if the changes here, if you go roll the same bans, Flash was just first pick Ezreal, and then the draft evolves from there very different.
Always excited to see the run back if they don't switch up the bans. And again, are they willing to blind pick this time around? Because, they actually dropped the other ban.
They dropped the Morgana ban, which might mean they don't want to rush pick for the Rakan, often seen as a counter pick to that champion.
Yeah, exactly. The supports dropping down here are going to be super interesting because we keep talking about how Sword Art has been counter picking down on that bottom side and trying to use that to get their pushing matchups. Yet in the last game, they picked the Kai'Sa Rakan lane, even though they did get a kill in lane. Not going to have the pressure, not going to have the push, and it cost them first turret, which has rarely happened this tournament.
I wonder if this will mean something like an Ezreal first pick and then maybe a Xayah Rakan into Ezreal Morgana lane. Maybe that's something we could actually see come through. Ezreal has been such a high-ticket item. Prey is such a legacy Ezreal player. And to me, it's a big surprise that once again, they look past it.
Wow, and really high prize on the Skarner. Grabbing that one earlier than the Olaf, as that had happened last time around as well. So already things changing up. LCK with Kingzone have the chance, of course, to go for that very standard Xayah Rakan, but again, the Ezreal seems to be the pick of the day.
And the Skarner priority, jumping way up after being almost an afterthought in group stage, is one of these 3 to 4 days during group stage into knockout adaptations that clearly comes from scrims. Skarner went from a bottom of the meta pick at this tournament into very much being front and center, judging by this.
So Zoe early on picked up, and I'm wondering if Flash is trying to bait out a Tom Kench pick as well with that early Skarner. So you see what the counter to Zoe might be in the mid lane.
Yeah, interesting here because they have both had successful Zoe games, and Zoe does kind of block some of the champions that are so worried about that big burst damage from the mid lane, like the Azirs of the world, but not going to be the case.
Flash also able to take down a Zoe comp earlier in the tournament with the duo of Vladimir and Ornn, and I wonder if Ornn would be considered this early. It's against Khan, who already showed us the Jax clearly. Got his mind in the position to go for these carry picks again. That duo can cause so much disarray and really stop the poke duo of Ezreal and Zoe going, but they want to take a first round AD carry, and it might be that second game, and it is going to be the second game for Benny.
Very curious what this comp ends up looking like. Does Flash Wolves go even more for the pick in the individual fights, or do they find hard engage? As you mentioned the Ornn before, there's a chance to ban it now with the second phase right there, as Kingzone going to look like a fairly similar draft as Olaf comes in, grabbing a couple of champions they had seen before, but I'm very curious to see what the comps will end up looking like after the bans come through. Do you go double range for priority bot lane, for example, or do you pick up, do you lose the bans there? Can it happen?
If the strategy continues as it has been trending, you would think there would be a carry top laner matchup as well as some extra damage there from the mid lane and some pushing bottom lane. So like these have been high pressure, early game oriented. Whoever gets the first push and control of the jungle ends up snowballing these matchups.
To your point, Freak, of course, we know that this tournament 7-1 with that bot lane turn, so the range support counter pick that the Flash was doing on both blue and red side in the early group stage, something they'd love to return to, one range support. The biggest meta one is going to be banned away in this Morgana. Kingzone traditionally would look for the top lane counter pick from Gorilla's spot. They tried to hold on to top lane as long as possible, and that's when we saw the Gnar draft earlier in this tournament, and the Yasuo took them down. Do they have another safe blind pick for Khan if they want to stop the range support from cleanly answering something like Gorilla's famous Tom Kench?
And there's that obvious Ornn ban coming through here, so if Hanabi does want to go for something more aggressive, and he has, to be fair, split his time between tanks and carries in the top lane, obviously can play both styles. The Ornn is off the table, so it's something a bit lower priority like a Sion or a Maokai or a Shen that you just don't want to play quite as much. One final ban here for Flash Wolves. Are they afraid of another top lane carry? As Gangplank was banned off before, they're going to add that Tom Kench ban in. Remove some of the safety in the back line, but Alistar grabbed up, and also, of course, removing hard engage options for Sword Art. Messi goes for that Rakan.
Are they going to run back the same matchup there, though? Alistar considered pretty good into that denial headbutt pulverized combo as well, and I don't think Stardart would want to have that same matchup.
Alistair obviously not a pick for lane power, not quite the defensive utility of Tahm Kench, but if he can be a roaming buddy with Peanut, that is certainly a very fearsome invade that can come through. They end up matching it with a melee support, so it will be Braum versus Alistair, and the safest possible blind pick tank would be the Scion and the top side champion that Khan has had. Not really minced words about, not the biggest fan of playing carries into Scion, but it does fit the drop.
And if they lock this in, this is a very 5-on-5 focused team for Flash.
Almost only.
A complete deviation from that strategy I was talking about earlier, where carry matchups on top side, pushing bottom lanes with ranged supports. This is the complete opposite. They're looking for the 5-on-5. They want to group up. They want to force. And that has been difficult versus teams like Kingzone if they're going for the split.
And there is that Camille for the split push. Will eventually outscale the Scion and win that side lane matchup. The question is, can the 5-on-5s happen for Flash Wolves before Khan takes over the entire base?
And I think, honestly, Flash Wolves was saying, do we ban the Tahm Kench or do we ban the Camille? Because the most obvious answer, and one of the few champions even out of form, Khan has shown some good Camille performance on earlier this tournament. They elected to ban the Tahm Kench. It gives less defensive options to the bot side, but Ezreal Alistair can still be a pretty decent lane and try to hold it in the middle, and Braum is not really looking to abuse the Alistair.
Right, the history you associate with Kingzone for most of the split was Frey and Gorilla absorbing pressure on the bottom side, not calling for jungle pressure, not pushing for first turret. You know, having the top side of the map be the aggressive trio, which Camille, Olaf, and Zoe most definitely is. So this may be more similar to their regular season.
Well, very exciting game to watch for here. Flash was changing up their strategy after being defeated here in Game 1. Many more games to play. It's Game 2 of the best of 5. Kingzone, the pre-tournament favorites, did not look on form in the group stage, but have now looked quite a bit better. Khan and Peanut especially stepping up to the big stage here. Flash Wolves with a new look, hoping they can reverse their fortunes from Game 1. Players on your screen, Summoner's Rift loading in the background. Let's get ourselves into Game 2.
Once again, we're going to be looking at these level 1s. Are you going to be able to get down a ward, scout out Olaf's route, have Skarner set up? Oh, the crowd is definitely ready for number 2. Have Skarner set up the Spires for that power clear. He can have extremely quick clear if he's able to retain control.
And I love that you mentioned the level 1 code, because if you remember, Peanut, even on Olaf, vacated his jungle, got 3 buffed, gave up things. You look at this draft, they don't have the same fallback patterns I feel like they did in Game 1, where they had both the ability to play the Aurelia in a side lane, 2 carries in their team, and able to just overpower as the game went on. This time it's a bit more fickle. They also have the Alistair, who's one of the gods of level 1, not the Braum is any slouch. I would expect, personally, a more active level 1, maybe trying to split the map, or just trying to take advantage of the fact that Game 1, it may have lulled them into a false sense of security by kind of being so defensive.
Let's see what comes out of this one right now. Gorilla patrolling the river. Ensuring nothing too scary is taken away. Mugen, of course, reprising his role on Skarner. The same for Peanut's Olaf. Trey joining in for this one, and the Spires can be captured as needed. Going to be doing the same. It looks like, yeah, this will not be anything looking like an aggressive early jungle start. Mugen going to be heading for a little bit of help on his chickens and starting on his side of the map.
So far, the level 1 is going to be as action-packed as I mentioned. The reason why I called it out is that when you look at this sort of a game, to get full value out of the Zoe, controlling the river, allowing you to play aggressive, getting the fabled mid lane priority is so important. As the game goes on, we have seen this tournament again and again how strong Vladimir is as a true 5v5 champion. If Olaf's on the invade and being backed up by a Trouble Bubble or a Paddle Star, taking over the enemy jungle, to me, should be Peanut's major objective in the early game.
Zoe definitely excels in helping out junglers move for aggressive looks. Speaking of aggressive looks, though, in the bottom lane, bit of a trading for the supports here.
Pretty good damage there, Betty. Does not click at the auto attack. That would have been a nice chunk to get that end of the plasma stacks to come through. Nice little poke there, but first push does go to Flash from the side, so level 2 should be theirs by all rights. Raptors to blue is the jungle path for Mugen. Could be a bit surprising to end up top side at level 3.
Yeah, that also makes me think that he's actually going to reverse clear now and go Gromp Wolves red and end up on the bottom side and try and have some sort of influence here to help out with the Braum Kaisa.
See where he ends up. You're seeing his drop is going down. Of course, Peanut right now is bottom side blue buff on. He's going to go for the scuttle first. It looks like Mugen low on health, but shouldn't have any problems getting rid of the rest of these camps.
Deep vision from either team means that they kind of in the dark about where this jungle path is. Seems like Peanut for now focused onto Scuttle Crab. It's going to be spotted on a ward just now.
Looking for aggressive play, almost gets that Drowsy, and he's actually going to get a really quick recall. Looks like it's going to be Boots picked up with Predator on. Still no red buff in inventory, but can go for a gank with Predator available now.
Mugen definitely setting himself up here. Heals fully at the fountain, has Boots ready for Predator. He's going to take red, and then he'll have full duration of this red buff to try and influence on the bottom side of the map with the reverse clear.
And I think his timing's going to be very obscured because usually when we see the first back for Skarner, it's Talisman and Boots. It's a further camp cleared or two into the back time. It's just a bit off when it comes to the normal timers of when you expect these level 3, level 4 ganks.
And we also need to talk about the other options because while Zoe, you know, everyone complains about the mid lane control and her invading your jungle and having the sleepy trouble bubble fly over the walls, junglers can definitely have a high impact on Zoe lanes. And try and punish her early on. Even though the ultimate provides some annoying moves that you can pull off, it's not a true escape. And if you burn Flash in trading with Zoe, it does make her play it much more respectfully.
And when we talk about this entire matchup, or specifically the Skarner into the Zoe, we often say, okay, when is the QSS coming? Is it first item, even before a Lost Chapter or a tier, depending on where you're going with your Lost Chapter upgrade? It's so easy for Skarner to roll through, and it flashes down. There's no escape plan for the Zoe. Post 6 on the Skarner.
The ward over the wall, and the lane is actually pushing towards Maple right now. You can see that Cannon Minion left alive. BDD might have to push a little bit forward, but still no gank coming through for Skarner. Back to his Raptors instead, staying in the jungle for now.
Should have a fairly smooth second clear here for Mugen, and he's happy to have no sort of conflict. Transfer over to his blue quadrant. Everybody staying on their own side, not moving offensively until Peanut now up through the lane, trying to take control of bottom.
Well, the one player who's not staying on his side, though, is Khan up in the top. We talked about it in the pregame. One of the big weaknesses for Kingzone, or playstyle points I should really say, is he is aggressive in a winning matchup top lane. It's why Kingzone picked red to counter pick for him. You saw in game 1, had a pretty high mark for percentage that is close to his LCK average and his in-wins average from MSI.
And if he doesn't have to blow his flash defensively, he's going to go ahead of that and eclipse that number on the Camille. He wants to push in. He wants to allow Peanut free reign to invade the blue side jungle of the Flash Wars and take any advantages there. He's making Hanabi super accountable. And as the game goes on for a draft that you, Kobe, very clearly said is about the 5v5 for Flash Wars, if that execution is off, that teleport is down, and Sion can't get the work done out of the lane, we know that Camille in the lane is going to train down turrets.
Yeah, Khan definitely going to be on display here. Gets right back to lane, and both top lane teleports have been used. So if there is action on the other side of the map, for now, it will be without those two.
Right now, most of the gold lead for Kingzone actually sits on Frey's shoulders right here. Individually, he's accounted for almost all of it. And then he's get traded back, and yeah, Khan will remain up in farm right here. Of course, one of the other big winners here on this side. Kingzone have a pretty solid early game right here. Now a bit of a hard engage. Nice damage there from Gorilla, and will be an easy enough recall for Prey. Of course, does have teleport available to grab his tier sheen and come back down.
Voidseeker actually was missed by Betty, was trying to interrupt the back from Prey, which would have bought them about 7 seconds there, and they know with teleport it's going to be right back.
Power spike flashed on, almost with the headbutt backwards, but a good defensive one out by Sword Arc as Peanut is here. Looking for the trade on the bottom side. Prey will not get hit by the rest of the plasma. Out they go.
Both junglers using Predator here on the bottom side. But Flash Wolves are the ones that haven't gotten their recall off, and Prey still pushing.
That's why the timing of Peanut was so pinpoint precise there. It was tier sheen on the first pack, gold standard. They were happy to take any 2v2 or 3v3.
And look at that, Betty cancels his recall because they're hard pushing. This is the tempo advantage that you get from a summoner teleport. People may still be surprised if they're just tuning in now to see teleports on the AD carries.
Yep.
But we're gonna have some action top.
And Hanabi is gonna try to run away, but he doesn't have a way out of the Hextech Ultimatum. Flash still available, looks for the slow. Health bar still pretty high. He's gonna walk away without burning the summoner, but now the flash suppression. They're gonna catch out Prey, and he is gone. First blood, twice in a row for Sword Art.
Mugen again to the bottom side, collapses, and they're able to get the kill. This is without even backing. What a huge relief for the bottom side of Flash Wolves here. The tempo advantage gained by that teleport and by the presence of the junglers thrown out the window, Papa Smithy.
And the respect there from Gorilla was just absent. He wasn't in the lane. He had gone top to try to clear wards. They weren't respecting that Mugen could still be there, even though with the control ward, he walks in, he's decisive, Alistair, he picks up a honey fruit. He kind of knows he's out of position.
Whoa. No
preemptive
opportunity there.
flash.
Yeah, Frey just gets flashed on and ulted there, not
Yeah.
reacting quick enough.
It does feel like a small misplay when you know Skarner's coming at you with the move speed. I think you have to preemptive flash against that because you don't have a way out otherwise. So a small misgiving there by Frey does give away 600 gold. But of course, Kingzone played back from First Blood last time.
Mujin rebounds from this, already picked up a kill, just going back into his jungle. No solo kill possible for Khan. That was the initial focus of the Observer and Wonders. Mid lane's been pretty isolated, which for BDD means a small CS lead. But ease of execution in the team fights in the late game for the Vladimir is going to be oh so more straightforward than actually piloting the zone.
Yeah, we have seen some very successful Vladimirs flanking around enemy teams and destroying the back line. Always have to keep up your warding around the sides if you're facing a champion like this. And as you mentioned, Baba Smithy, even though Khan did not get a solo kill up on the top side there on Sion, he's definitely pulling away in the CS. Now he's got his Tiamat. He can easily deal with those minion waves. It's one of the big things there for Camille, getting that before trying to transfer into your Trinity Force for the burst damage.
Something very interesting, speaking of item builds, is Hanabi going towards the Sunfire Cape, but hold that because there's some mid lane pressure here as Hanabi does come down. Doesn't find the play. Predator popped as well. BDD kites back to his jungler, and they're going to be saved.
Unstoppable Onslaught ultimate for Sion down, so wasn't able to just train his way in, try to start the CC chain, so it just ends up being a roam. Good call on the item build. The Sunfire Cape's certainly not standard, but will allow a little bit more trading power when it comes to the 1v1, and he probably knows he's going to be isolated against Khan for the majority of this game.
I do like that idea, though. We'll see if it does pan out for him in this one. Is BDD going to look for the wave clear continually? It is Spellbook and both these mid laners. Maple's already switched to teleport. Still the ignite right now, and beat it even now. A stun on the top side. Is once again Khan looking for the damage output here. Hanabi does not have the easiest time. Loses about a quarter of his health bar every time those combos go through.
Yeah, Khan able to get a decent trade-off. Also has the push on minions. Meanwhile, Mujin does protect Maple while he fell asleep. He's able to block that extra burst damage, so no harm done in the mid lane either.
Even though we've seen pushing top lane, pushing bot lane, his forward percentage, this priority hasn't led to any forward objectives for the side of Kingzone. They don't have wards in the blue side jungle of the Flash Wolves. Because we're talking about top side objectives, they can't easily take Drakes like they were able to in game number 1. And forward percentage, those other stats, they mean very little. They don't translate into tangible goals on the screen.
And we will see if the top lane is able to transfer down for this Infernal Drake, because Hanabi now is approaching the state of the game where he's continually a punching bag for Khan, who's just trying to wear him down and get advantage as far as the teleport cooldowns.
And even as far as his individual health bar is concerned, he's at the state where he could almost be all-in by Khan. So you're seeing that's a recall out from Sion, buy some more items, Ninja Tabby done, more cloth armors, and hoping maybe next time around he can survive the encounter. We're seeing that press the attack for Khan, much more about the all-ins, is paying its dues. And a TP will be saved as he pops the ultimate to run back to lane.
Yeah, they're very well aware. This Infernal Drake on the bottom side is very enticing for both teams. He doesn't want to give up his teleport to be able to join on that bottom side.
That bubble's going to be trouble. Down a half HP, Maple gets hurt. Tries to stay back up afterwards.
Again, just like the slow whittling down of your opponent in the 1v1 is important on top side for the Dragon. Even though Vladimir is a healing champion and he'll be able to sustain if you leave him alone, the constant trades here from BDD trying to whittle down Maple, trying to put him in a more vulnerable position, could open up the opportunity for them to actually spring that trap.
So the build is how safe he goes on the Vladimir. Death cap after Shirelli has been pretty common actually. Less people going for Proto Belt or Zonias, but given how much they are about teamfight access, we'll have to keep track on Maple. Again, it's further items for the Vladimir to get going. When he has 5 points as Tides of Blood and is close to that second item, then the poke coming through from the Zoe really concerns him a lot less.
I have to say, I think Flash Wolves are fairly happy with the way that this early game for game number 2 has gone. They've stabilized quite quickly, and especially for a team with multiple rookies on it, we always have to keep an eye on the poise that they keep in high pressure situations. Right now, they're able to push up off Kingzone. There's a recall from BDD, so they slip right in, take that Infernal Drake, and get themselves a Drake lead.
And I see Don and Gorilla quite low, so Pop the wall, but his health bar is so dangerously low, gets back over. The flash fall of Maple should have the damage Team Up Plague will do lethal. And there's the pop picked up 2-0 in this one. Watch out for the bubble. The re-engage, they caught! Oh, he's down through a pair of ultimates. And this is a 4v2 inside the opposing jungle. Looking for the play back in. Can they find BDD? Maple's in a bad spot. Has to channel the ultimate, or the subterranean into the pool of blood. But the re-engage, unstoppable. But Peanut is running away. The trade still comes in. They've knocked down Prey 3 kills in a row in this fight.
Are you kidding me? Flash Wolves, exquisite bottom fight here. Everyone gets out alive for the time being. BDD wants to take that story, though.
If that Q landed, that might have been Betty's death, but BDD still wants in. The cooldown's back up soon.
It's even worse than it first appears, guys. This was the teleport down from Khan. Sion even gets time on the top side, and the kills all goes Flash Wolves.
That was a game-breaking bottom lane skirmish here for Flash Wolves. They absolutely smash Kingzone in this. The re-engage where Kong tries to teleport in and jump onto them, but Sword Art stuffs him so quickly on the Braum, and they CC lock him. Skarner ultimate goes down. Absolutely insane stuff here. It starts off, though, with, of course, the Inferno Drake drawing Gorilla over the wall, and Betty just taking pot shots at him. Takes down all of his health before it even starts.
And the call is to go in. Gorilla both headbutt pulverizes and flashes out. He will die to the delayed Hemo Plague. It could have just been one
but
kill.
They re-engage!
Exactly, that's the surprise here. He goes in with Skarner ultimate up to Khan, dies instantly, and this is while BDD can only skip around. He's done nothing at the start of this fight.
And look at how they played this out as well. That team fight, you can watch that one over multiple times and still with a smile on your face if you're a Flash Wolves fan. Right now, though, back out onto the field, taking down the Scuttle Crab. The big one, the purple one, Freak.
The big one, they're gonna get the empowered Void one. And we thought coming in this would have been a pretty close series. Kingzone, maybe some struggles in the group stage. Flash will certainly surprising pleasantly at MSI 2018, and this is them back on form here. A completely new look for Game 2, playing more for the team fights, and they got one at 12 minutes, one they smashed 3-0. First turret as well, not to the bottom lane, but still a great thing for them.
The bot duo, and Betty getting out of lane in this spot is so different to where Betty was at, constantly behind Prey in game number 1. That early kill in bot lane, then the failed execution on the teleport, that might already be too much for Kingzone to take this late, because in the late game, we still haven't really seen Vladimir's full impact.
I really do have to give a lot of credit to that Flash Wolves duo. Certainly the gank helped, but to keep lane pressure against a summoner teleport, so much easier for Prey to have lane control. But the Drake was started because bot had priority, and that's really kudos to Betty and Sword Art for having that lane pressure.
Where's the jungler credit, Freak? Mutin's the one who got them that kill right after.
It's all 80 carry. It's all the bot lane. It's the 80 carry and the support. Half credit goes to Sword Art, highest KDA in the team. Obviously, our bottom lane's all that matters.
Honestly, though, this Flash Wolves team, this is what we want to see in this series. Them showing up, pushing Kingzone as they push all of the teams here in the group stages. Flash Wolves, after Worlds last year, definitely a disappointing exit for them. And they came to MSI with a lot to prove for their region. 2 new rookies on the team, and they have absolutely slammed.
And the 2 champions they stuck with, the Kai'Sa and the Skarner, have been this front and center to a lot of this early play, so that also should be called out. We talked about the theoretical draft they were considering. Tom Kench ban or Camille ban. They've certainly played around the fact that Tom Kench is not there, with the Alistar being much more easy to take advantage of. And speaking of taking advantage,
and with the Rift Herald picked up early, they're going for the mid lane here. This charge is going to do full damage, and they're almost ready to keep pushing. A lot of the team kind of cutting back, but they have enough pressure. This will be the second turret picked up. This one not going to be answered by a Kingzone split push. So finally, some actual heavy gold leads into the Flash Wolves' pockets.
and this composition from behind from Kingzone doesn't fight well against what's drafted from Flash Wolves outside of Khan hitting critical mass and deciding the game in a side lane.
We're looking at some critical damage here on this support. Sword Art chunked down a little bit there, but staying alive, and now the re-engage towards Gorilla. Stuns layered, having to walk back through the slows, and with a headbutt gets some space, but Betty's still in the chase. That's the kill picked up from the side. And now BDD's got to kite away from this one, should stay alive, but that 5 unanswered kills for Flash Wolves.
Sword Art is outclassing Gorilla hard in this game. Absolutely baits them in once again there. Has the Unbreakable up, even though he falls asleep, isn't going to take the extra damage, and Gorilla kind of baits himself even there on the Alistar. dying once again for the team and costing them quite a bit of pressure in their own jungle.
And that early snowball is the reason Gorilla goes down, because it was very clear Maple couldn't get there. He was walking from top lane to try to get there for that fight, but even outnumbered. Flash Wolves have the damage, they have the target selection. Kingzone are trying to scuttle in different directions and watching further objectives go down.
Flash was playing this mid-game so well. 18 minutes in, Maple gets away, but does burn double summoners. Just for the attempted CC coming out of BDD, still bot lane does fall. It's a positive trade for the team.
Yeah, Flash Wolves, not only do they have a great team for 5v5ing, let's check out this Acer replay with Sword Art once again baiting in Gorilla. Able to get his Unbreakable up, blocks the damage. Gorilla then decides, oh, the teleport has come in. There's no way for me out on the Alistar. And even though he can headbutt, Betty is on the follow.
With full information, it started a 4v2 and then the teleport was being channeled. Maple finally gets there, Mugen finally gets there, and yet Kingzone, they know the position they're in this game. They don't have full information about the enemy, and they have to pull back.
And again, if it is going to be a setup where everyone can join, Flash Wolves' composition has the upper hand in a 5-on-5, especially at this stage in the game, where they've got tanks.
Oh, the flash in over the bubble. They've got the crowd control. BDD is going to run for some space. Oh, you have to believe the chase is their killer instinct. The flash popped as well. Betty secures another.
And it looks like they're setting up to dominate this game. 6-0 for Flash Wolves, and they can easily take the Dragon as their reward.
And when you're this far down in turrets, all outers down for the side of Kingzone, where do you put the Zoe? There's nowhere safe. If you can roll through his Mugen with your Righteous Glory this early in the game, it's free kills. The QSS still not there. And the Ocean Drake, a freebie for Flash Wolves.
And lets him stay on the map even more. We saw some of those fights in the previous game where Kingzone would win. The health bars were low and it was dangerous to look at Baron. This time around a little bit easier here on the Flash Wolves side. A quick blue buff steal as well. And Kingzone just ceding control of the map for Flash Wolves. It's free real estate. Is taking over more and more of this one. Ward's gonna go down as well. These ones not invisible. And it's quickly gonna become darkness here for Kingzone.
All right, the darkness is closing in. Sword Art and Betty on the move. Gonna force spray out of mid as well. And if you look at the map, this is the 5-on-5 team with such a big lead that they've got all minion waves pushing right now. The map is dark for Kingzone, and it's closing quickly.
Very long lanes for them to have to play in, and that means extra access for a flanker. When the Vladimir finally finds his angles, all they can do for now is try to stem the bleeding, try to get injectors to gold, get towards that second tier upgrade on the Ezreal, get some damage onto BDD on the Zoe. These aren't necessarily win conditions, but they're very much containment for the side of Kingzone.
Yeah, it's so much easier for the side of Flash Wolves here to execute.
Yep.
Went ahead with the stronger 5-on-5, slowly moving up their ward line, taking off the neutral objectives, keeping Kingzone pinned inside of their own base. And this is something that Flash Wolves have done extremely well this entire tournament.
It's been very visible. You see the stat on the top of your screen, 7-2. That gold lead at 20. You just look back at the VODs. When I was preparing, I could see how clean and crisp Flash Wolves were when the game was predictable and they were ahead. It's when they were behind, and shot calling with a mixed language roster can be difficult from behind, and some of their tendencies fell apart. This is the prototype of a one game for Flash Wolves.
Oh, they're going to find Grill in the front lines, takes up Raw, heads back into Mugen. Looks for the pullback though on a BDD, could be a lot of damage. Peanut very low as well. Can this be a fight that Kingzone can turn around? Killer Instinct into the back, but they can't come out. Can they knock down Betty? Yes, there is a trade, but the kills come through fast and furious. BDD goes in for a little bit. It might not be enough. Praise on the chase. Looks for Sword Art, flashes away. He's going to stay alive, and now Maple is here. He's ready to get his kills, and Prey, oh, he's going to get pancaked. Maple takes him out.
Oh my goodness, it looked competitive there for a second because it was a 4v5. Maple hadn't even joined the fight. Once he does, Flash Wolves can push right through mid.
But with the outnumbering, they only managed to trade in fairly even fashion, and they lose the objective, like you mentioned, Kobe. Not enough damage yet onto Prey. Camille caught in no man's land after using the ultimate to guarantee the kill on Betty. They're not getting the value of threats fighting together.
And the only way that wasn't a complete stomp in the 4v5 in the favor of Flash Wolves was because Khan was able to get his stun onto Kaisa, onto Betty when he jumped back in. Let's take another look at the setup. As you said, Freak,
Mugen got the free access onto BDD, but he has the stopwatch. He doesn't die. And then look at the minimap. That was the thing that was lost. We were zoomed in on the action. Vladimir's nowhere.
Right, and that was the re-engage from Betty. If it wasn't for Khan on the Camille instantly reacting and flashing to get that stun, Betty was about to pop off hard, get a triple kill in the backline, and run through. But because they were able to kill him there, they had to wait for Maple to clean it up.
Yeah, it still ended up being a triple kill. As you mentioned, Maple did join in to have that number 3 for himself, but big damage out of the bottom lane, even more out of Prey. If he is able to somehow stay safe behind the front line, you know he can put out a lot in this game. Execution, of course, still matters quite a bit, but the gold lead is getting bigger and bigger. 7,000 puts Flash Wolves ahead. That is a massive, massive gold lead. 20% above their opponents here.
And a different game where Kingzone hadn't fallen far behind. The way to win for them, ward all your flanks, look for the trouble bubble, look for the paddle start, and profit off of the chunk. They can't do that. We're watching very enclosed fights where there's really no value out of Zoe. She has almost no role at all. And if Flash Wolves can keep recreating the sort of fights that we get on our replays, it's going to be a Flash Wolves victory.
Definitely seems like the path forward for Flash Wolves is very clear. Kingzone trying to forge their own path through their jungle, though, and try and contest this Baron.
You know, Baron's a very big objective here. As going to look for the play. There's a knock-up under the back line. They get the suppression in. Looking for the kill here. Is it going to be enough damage? Gorilla goes to kite back and build some more time. They've only got the kill back on a sword up, but it's still a 2 for 0. A double kill for Betty, and the chase continues. But the retreat for Kingzone means no more kills picked up.
That should be control of Baron as well. BDD's trying to get some poke damage, but Mugen shrugs it off.
You can tell how far ahead they are. They just ult anyone. They see an Alistar with ult running. They're like, yep, go for it, because they know that Kingzone will try to collapse on the Alistar. And once again, Maple has his summoners to get on, launch up the Hemo Plague, take down Prey, and now start the Baron to Flash Wolves.
Seems like it's a playground here for Betty on the Kai'Sa. Huge front line, plenty of zoning for him to work with, and he is ripping through these team fights.
And they're guaranteeing no one can steal the Baron. Hanabi and Swordart both playing very far up, looking for Peanut. Even the minion wave helping as well. Zero chance of a steal, and Flash Wolves have still only given up 1 kill and 1 turret, and a dominant game 2 over Kingzone.
Maple falls asleep at the wheel, but gonna shrug that one off as well, and gonna go right back to base to get his purchase done.
Definitely excuse a lot of mistakes, little ones, when you're this far ahead. Notice the job of the Skarner is to ult anyone. They go for that ult. Here comes the Scion. Here comes the Vladimir. Again, backline access for Maple because it's such a long map within a turret in mid lane already taken down. Too easy for Vladimir to get in there.
Yeah, this is why we're referring to the ease of execution of the composition of Flash Wolves in the 5-on-5 team fights if Kingzone didn't have a very healthy item lead on a lot of their champions. Just cutting straight through them. And Papa Smithy, you got to think about this being a best of 5 in a long series. Maybe Kingzone, we do see them utilize their jungle sub once again, because if you go back to your win conditions you're stating for the team, Peanut was not very active this game in the same way that he was in game number 1.
Did end up being a bit of a passenger in this game. The Wen is very interesting because backs against the wall and 1-on-1 are such different propositions. Draft here really working out for Flash Wolves. Even their side selection for game number 3. Maybe you do return to the blue side, a very different proposition after their performance here. Does feel like we're waiting for them to dot the I's and cross the T's. The gold lead, 10,000 gold at 25 minutes.
Now looking for the bottom lane siege. It's going to be a stop on the TP. Khan will keep the Scion out of the fight, but there's still 2 more tanks for Flash Wolves carries to hide behind. This really not much of a downside for them as all the skill shots get blocked. The turret's losing health, and Betty gonna feel a little unwell, but does finally knock down those last few shots. Over to the mid lane they go, but first Peanut here to clear out the wave. Hanabi can only do so much to stop that. Mugen walks in, a few hundred health will drop, but Kingzone might keep this turret alive, at least for this wave.
Yeah, Flash Wolves, no reason to let up the siege here. Kingzone trying to just fend them off and buy themselves a little bit more time to work with.
Still a minute, 15 seconds with Baron buff. Scion right up the middle, lands onto the turret for some extra damage. Gonna knock this one down. The Fletchin almost got Prey. That was close. Ulti did not come through though. Double inhibitor gonna be down though. Only 27 minutes in and the base is shattered.
Of the execution from Flash Wolves. With these Scion comps, I saw Fnatic earlier this tournament refuse to go for the dives. They know how far ahead they are. Roll down the front. Go for that invitation to Hanabi. They get the objective they want. They fully control this map, and seems to be no light at the end of the tunnel for Kingzone in game 2.
Nope, Hanami is blocking all of it, and Flash Wolves not going to find a... Well, actually, they're going to keep on finishing up with his topside crush, finish up the secondary one. They have a lot of gold in inventory, is what I'm saying here, though.
Yep.
They could go back and spend it.
Lots of golden pockets, but Tier 2 is going to be a safe enough pickup. They go for the ult, and they trade it away with Peanut, but it looks like this... They're going to stay. The last 20 seconds of Baron buff. Again, golden pockets could be a play that Kingzone can make. Here comes a dive on towards the backside, and Maple reaches in for prey. Ezreal might just stay alive, though. Hemoplex, no, is still enough. A double kill, make it a triple. They're all falling. Kingzone giving up their base.
They're going to be some rich men killing the Nexus here for Kingzone. I mean, for Flash Wolves.
They can just hoard the gold, Kobe. They don't even need it.
They're going to smack him with bags of gold here in this one. It's going to be chocolate inside as the turrets start falling. Both Nexus turrets fall. Kingzone could not possibly defend this siege anymore. 14-1 in kills, 11-1 in turrets. An absolute stomp of a game. Flash Wolves firing back in game 2.
Just about explode the Nexus, and they also explode us into our first true series of the semifinals. We will not have a 3-0 in this one. After game 1, it seemed all the prophecies of Korea's past would come forward and once again be met. But in game number 2, we see that Kingzone can be beat. The early game goes the way of the Flash Wolves, and clean as you like, 26 minutes later, it felt like it was over.
So interesting, too. Because of the way that Flash Wolves had succeeded against Kingzone previously, we predicted this to be a series of split pushing, of carry top laners, of pushing early bottom lanes, buying for early map pressure to snowball. Yet Flash Wolves in this game go for 5-on-5, they hard engage, they win the skirmish bottom lane, and just blow the game wide open.
Well, it's them realizing they couldn't anymore because of the red side priority on Kingzone, saying, you can never be allowed to win your top lane matchup. We will always last pick for Khan. And immediately Flash will go, okay then, new style. And they had a team fight comp ready. The draft looked pretty good. They managed to line up the champions quite nicely. We even heard the analysts talk about, hey, are there any carries that Maple can play? Turns out, yeah, his Vladimir's pretty good. He was a really big factor there. The gang spot also great as well.
And teamfight execution let them down against the Yasuo comp the first time these two teams met. The execution around that Drake, where all those kills piled up, Camille finally teleports and actually counts against them. That was the beginning of the end for Kingzone.
Well, a beautiful game there for Flash Wolves, 1-1 now our series. So now for more on that win, let's send it down to the State Farm analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Freak. A much more dominant game, too, here out of Flash Wolves as they strike back and even up the score here in our second best of 5. Frosk, you still want to wave that white flag?
Wasn't even worried.
No,
That's it. Looking
I thought I burned it already backstage. Oh, no, this never happened.
Throw it out, no. Looking at this draft, you do have the compositions at the bottom of your screen right now. I already immediately like the adjustment of having the Vladimir there. We did have questions. I wanted to see Maple take out a carry pick. He does so with the Vladimir, but I feel like it's almost gifted to him slightly because of how early Zoe was prioritized.
I didn't mind the Zoe personally.
I don't mind it, but it's pretty easy. I mean, he's just going to pool, farm it up.
That's fair. Like, I think Kingzone were like, aha, look, we have a Zoe pick. We don't think Mabel's going to pick anything that can shut it down, so we can try and get early priority there. Then we get the Olaf again if it's available for Peanut, because they already saw the Skarner was first pick. And they had a pretty good combo to put a lot of pressure on them. But the problem is then you need to do something with it. And they tried. And the first fight, obviously, which I'm sure we're going to get into later.
We will in a moment, but Jack, go for it.
Yeah, I didn't mind Kingzone's team composition. I think
it's good.
The logic behind picking the Zoe when Maple has had it as such a high play champion to get mid lane pressure and maybe have a little kill threat on him so you can take river control with the Olaf and get bottom lane kills with the Alistair. All that makes sense. It just falls apart in the execution. I thought Flash Wolves' bottom lane played a lot better, and I think Muujin got really good ganks off with the Skarner.
Yeah, but Deficio, there were 2 champions in particular that you guys were talking about on the side of Kingzone last game that caused issues for Flash Wolves, the Aurelia and the Tahm Kench. Both of them hit the ban table this time around, so are you happy with the adjustments made by Flash Wolves here to give them more of a chance?
Yeah, very, very happy. I think especially in the first phase when you ban Aurelia, it's fine if you don't have an answer. You don't need to have one because you can just remove it in the ban phase. And the Tahm Kench as well, because it was kind of weird with Gorilla. He was forced into blind picking support because they wanted to last pick for Khan in the top lane. He locks in the Alistar to kind of try and block some range supports because you can all in them if you have a jungler coming down. But it actually allowed Sword Art then to pick a tank support, which normally is his preferred playstyle, not the range supports. So he got a Braum, and man, what a performance from this player.
That said, though, like I like the adjustments that Flash Wolves made to have a larger window. Like this is an actual scaling composition. You actually have a window late game that you can play, and you don't just get rolled over. That said, you said the word execution, and I 100% agree. Kingzone's draft was excellent, but it was just the mis-execution that allowed Flash Wolves to snowball and run away with the game.
So execution, 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 and for Kingzone, if there's one player that's been performing underperforming rather, throughout the tournament when it comes to execution, it's Khan. Let's take a look at this fight now.
And this fight is an example, I think, of someone saying to go in, but the team not being ready for it. I think that happened with Gorilla at the start, and then they just never called the fight off. Khan completes his TP, needs to play with a bit of patience, perfectly timed ult from Sword Art, and once he gets that knockup, Khan has no recourse. Definitely goes in too early. It reminisced of the teleports from the group stage when Khan was on Vladimir, but then they actually just kept going for it, and it kept falling apart.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the game here and at this replay, BDD was unable to really do almost anything in the fight. Like the first engage already was really confusing. I'm like, I'm Alistar. I actually want to get out of the fight, but let me just combo in first, so when I flash back to where I originally stood. Instead of just flashing the wall from the get-go saying, we're not in a position to take this fight, step out. Flash was completely outplayed Kingzone in these skirmishes all game long.
And that's the thing, is that it's not normally how Flash Wolves actually win games. When you look at their gold difference at 15 from 20 minutes, they go from having the lowest gold difference to having the highest gold difference. I checked with stats, I'm like, what's happening in these 5 minutes? Is it team fights or what's happening? No, it's actual tower taking. They take more Rift Heralds than any other team in this tournament. Once you give them a lead, they have such a systematic drop on the map. They move from tower to tower to tower, grab the Rift Herald, and snowball effectively.
And for Oscar, and I think they're in position to do that game. They actually did get the first 3 turrets of the game. It's just normally teams don't run into you single file and give you 4 kills. I think that's one of the reasons they got them that way. They weren't setting up for a fight, they were setting up for the Drake.
Yep. I mean, in so many ways, this game was so much more reminiscent of the 2 wins that they had over Kingzone in the group stage. The length of time the game took itself was much more similar. I want to push us to our 21-minute replay. Flash Wolves 3 for 1 in the red side jungle here.
And it's going to be another fight for us.
But the crazy thing is if you look at where Maple is, he doesn't have a teleport. He's at the very top, and his team chooses to just walk face forward into a team fight.
Yeah, and focus on BDD's Zoe here, and it's a little bit of the story of the game. He's not landing his spells. He could have actually killed Betty much earlier. When he doesn't, Khan burns the ult on it. That means they don't have the damage to take down Sword Art. And then eventually, as Prey is chasing that fight, Maple finally arrives, pops the Reverie on Ezreal, who's expended everything. And we know that combo, when just pressed properly, one-shots.
It's just really cool to see, though, how some of the concerns we had from the group stages in terms of how Kingzone were actually taking these fights, because they would lose also to RNG with it, these different skirmishes. It also happened here. Yep. We obviously saw a good plan in game 1 with the Aurelia pick on their side and executed it very well. But in game 2 already, we start seeing how Flash Wolves can actually win the fights. It just sets us up for this like potential 5-game series, which is super back and forth.
And I really loved what happened in the first 2 games, because game 1 confirmed our ideals that they're going to be able to adjust and become that unstoppable Korean behemoth. And game 2 confirmed that there's still some large question marks about Kingzone and their ability to execute under pressure, as well as Flash Wolves definitely not being dead.
But now I'm so curious, what are Flash Wolves going to pick for what side in game number 3? Because so far we've seen pretty much the exact same strategy.
Dash knows the answer.
I have the answer.
What is it?
It's red side, and no subs are coming in for this game. So again, with the shoe on the other foot now, with Kingzone just having suffered a loss and being forced onto the blue side, where's the source of recourse? How do they answer some more of those questions that have been raised?
I think that is so fascinating that they've decided to swap after winning the game on blue side. So that's Flash Wolves going over to red. I still think Ezreal can be a very high priority. But their just question is, does Kingzone actually first pick it? Because they've been taken in the second rotation. If they do not, that means they're going to be giving over the Skarner as well as whatever is Flash Wolves choosing.
I think one of the reasons Flash Wolves is doing this is because it's going to free up at least the Karma ban they're going for, because Karma is such a good red side pick. When you take in the first rotation, you can flex it both mid and support. They don't have to ban that now. They can actually take it if it is available. Ryze might also just get off the ban list here, because once again, they have the chance to counter pick it if they do see it locked in. So I think with the Flash Wolves side here, going to red side could change the bans. Aurelia probably remains a ban.
And thinking about it a little bit more, generally speaking, red side is the counter pick side, blue side is the power pick side. And Kingzone has actually been mostly power picking, but when they won, it was with counter pick. So by
Right.
Flash Wolves taking red side, they take that power away from Kingzone a little bit and try and avoid what happened in game 1, I guess.
I also don't think that Flash Wolves have really been excelling on their power picks for blue side. The fact that it was a Rakan priority pick and they didn't get a bot lane advantage and then a Skarner priority pick. Like, yes, they're getting the Kai'Sa, but it's because they're being given the Kai'Sa.
Right, that's where I was going to go to you, Deficio, on because that exact idea of the Skarner of all things picked up so early, but as well being kind of gifted the counter pick support because of that Alistar pickup that you mentioned.
Right.
Well, hey, now on red side, they can have whatever counter pick they want. Do you think that game 2 kind of showed, or rather illustrated to Flash Wolves, that the importance of that counter pick for their ability to stomp the early game?
There's definitely a high chance that they want to try and force this blind pick from Gorilla's side. As long as Tahm Kench is banned, there's nothing you can really log in they should be too afraid of. And we now see a team with 2 options. There's the support counter pick one for, of course, Sword Art. The other one is save your top lane pick for Hanabi. If they feel like, okay, hey, there's a chance we can get a counter pick for this guy against Khan, who's actually not playing that well. I mean, game 1, we didn't really notice him, and game 2, he played very poorly.
That's the other topic I want to hit real briefly. We talk a lot about draft, a lot about the tools in which these teams have to craft a victory. We haven't talked too much about how the players are operating on the day in terms of, hey, are they showing up to the level that is expected? Are they overperforming? Are they underperforming? We did tease that top lane matchup, Hanabi versus Khan, and in lane, it looks like Khan has a little bit of control, but is still being plagued by some errors when it comes to the team fight phase.
Yeah, very early on in the first game, it looked like Hanabi had a few nerves because I think he conceded too many CS and got pushed in a little bit early. But since then, the kill they got early in the first game, as well as Khan's poor performance, I actually favor Hanabi with how he's been playing so far.
And what a world we live in where we're saying something like that.
I
Ross?
mean, that said, they did adjust his matchup of having the Scion, so giving him more comfort. He still went down, I believe, 1v1 in that lane. Well, I do agree with you that I think you can see that the nerves have shooken off, but I don't necessarily know if he, like, throws the gauntlet down and, like, grabs the counter pick Camille or Yasuo.
I think they just put him
I
on
hope so.
tanks.
I hope so,
If
but-
they can win the tank versus Kingzone carry matchup, that's actually their most comfortable state.
Because then they get the better 5v5.
Exactly, and that's fine for them.
All right, well, there you have it with the finals around the corner. A reminder that the prize pool grows with every purchase of the Conqueror of Eris bundle. And if in-game rewards aren't enough for you, well, of course, there's also the MSI exclusive long sleeve available on merch.riotgames.com. Getting a look at that Varus skin right now as it appears in-game. Some cool little graphics and Easter eggs put into the abilities as well, so be sure to check that out. When we return, we see if Flash Wolves or Kingzone can bring the series to match point. So don't touch that browser.